Hi everybody, this is Esha Oberoi from Leora.ai and you're listening to the Leora Workplace Wellbeing Podcast. This is a channel if you want to create a great place to work. We're sharing the latest and greatest insights into how you can start first and foremost with yourself, then your team, and then your organization in improving its culture. So today we have a guest, Evelyn Jackson. She's a HR extraordinaire. And in today's conversation, we're going to take a deep dive into creating a meaningful working culture and how the workplace is changing into the future. So welcome, Evelyn. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Give us a little bit of context around Corporate Crayon. What is the work that you do?
So Corporate Crayon exists to inspire work that matters. We essentially help organizations communicate more effectively, build more meaningful workplaces so that people can thrive. That's essentially at the core of what we do.
And I know that when we were speaking last time, you spoke about and used the analogy of the Maslow hierarchy of needs in some sense. What is desirable to employees and not just the, fruit bowl and the ping pong and machines in the workplace. Tell us a little bit about this framework and how businesses can leverage it.
We work extensively with Barrett Values Center, and Barrett Values has developed a model to explore well-being in the workplace based on human needs. And the thinking here is that if you're able to address how people feel as a result of the employee experience they have, then you're able to increase their well-being and help them thrive. So the model has 7 levels of human needs, and each of those are more or less important depending on your circumstances and who you are as a human being.
Yeah, you have, from your line of sight, Evelyn, because you're in all different businesses, workplaces. And so I'm assuming like all sizes as well, something from small to medium to even enterprises. Do you think that something like this framework is applicable across all sizes, or is there a certain kind of headcount that you have to reach before you start implementing some of these practices?
I think it's something that's relevant to all sizes, all shapes and sizes of an organization, because a lot of it is about how much do we understand our people, and I guess what we can do as leaders of organizations to understand everyone that works for us and what their personal needs are, because each person contributes to the organization no matter the size. So I think across all, definitely.
And can you tell us about these needs? What are these needs that employees need?
Sure. So the first need, or at the very basic level, we talk about the physical needs, or the survival needs, if you like. So these are things like health, how healthy someone feels, perhaps security. So this is where an organization needs to make sure that they're providing a safe environment, whether it be psychologically safe or physically safe, but also whether an employee feels that their employment is secure. So this is one of the needs that perhaps we're seeing at the moment impacting people a little bit more with the economy, the way that it is. So being aware of how people are feeling in regards to that physical or survival need is critical. And that's one of the needs. We talk about relationships, and that's kind of the second level in the spectrum. And that's really about how cared I feel. So employees need to feel like they're cared for, or humans generally need to feel like they're cared for, right? But because they spend a lot of time at work, it's really about, do I feel cared by my leaders, my organization? Do I have the right social relationships in the workplace that I feel secure in that environment? And I'm not feeling or worried about what people might think of me. So that's something that's quite more and more has become more and more important, especially I think post the pandemic. We have competence, which is about how capable I feel. So how effective do I feel in what I do? And that's about, not just about do I get the right training, but it's more about Do I genuinely feel that I've been put in the right role? You know, have I joined an organization where I can do my best? I often say to people, not many people turn up to work to do a bad job. Most people turn up to do the very best they can do. And so, do they feel competent in what you're asking them to do? It's really important, and it affects how they feel. We talk about growth and autonomy. So, this is about, can I self direct what I do? Can I grow by doing? But do I have the ability to have a bit of a say of how I go about doing my job? Do I feel trusted that I'm able to do that? And does the organization kind of set up to do that? That really impacts how someone feels, especially in how they, the worries they might take home or the stress they might take home. It's not so much about control or lack of control. It's really more about, can I self-direct? Then we talk about self-expression, and this is about how authentic I can be. So, you know, can I really be my very best and who I really am in the office? I think previously leadership has talked a lot about this, about being an authentic leader. But these days, I think everybody has a need to be their true selves. And when that isn't possible because of the circumstances, that's when you can see that stress levels rise. They start to feel disconnected from the workplace, and it starts to affect their well-being at home as well as at work. We talk about interconnection, or really becoming part of something greater than what you do. So knowing kind of how all the dots fit together, like how do I contribute to this organization, or what's the connection between what I do and what we're trying to accomplish? And do I have like do I feel like I belong to the organization and to my team? Do I feel like these are the people I want to be with 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day? And contribution, which is the seventh need, is around the greater good. So that's more about social impact. And that's really the higher level of, is what I'm doing, does that matter to the world at large, you know? And you have people that genuinely need to know what the purpose of an organization is and feel like that aligns to who they are as human beings. And if they don't, they again feel like they're not fully fulfilled in what they're doing. And that impacts how they feel generally.
It's really interesting. As you were saying that, I was thinking, how much of this do you think, how many of these needs do you think will evolve with the future of work? Or do you think that these are like baseline needs and there will be no evolution on these? There might be just more additions to this framework.
I think, and what I've seen over time, so Barrett has been around for a long time, and initially it was a model that was used primarily for understanding people's values. But I think what I've seen and what I think will happen is more and more people will have a variety of these needs. So we talk about, in some cases, some people have a real strong need for relationships. And in other areas or other organizations, we see that people have a greater need for competence, for example. Over time, what I think is going to happen is that it probably shifts what I call up the spectrum towards that sense of belonging, self-expression, the idea that I contribute to the greater good. I think those kind of higher order needs are becoming much more important as we, I guess, evolve in the work-life relationship.
Yeah. And the other thing that just I was thinking about is like in different businesses, the intensity of one value might be more because of the nature of the work than others. And then it's like, how do you best position those value propositions? So I think about, my experience in health, and we in certain roles can't offer a lot of autonomy because we're guided by the regulatory framework, the compliance that comes in from the government, and it's very prescriptive, even for the organization, let alone the employee. So then, but then it's like really amplifying the greater good, the purpose, the impact on community, or some of the other values in an organization. So you can kind of really play around with it to best fit your industry, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess the real test for me is how authentic the value proposition can be.
Hmm.
And it's not about trying to make every organization the same, because they are all different. And it's also about making sure that you find the nuggets within your organization that are going to appeal to the people that you need to work for you, to be inspired to want to work for you, but also um, I think we do have a responsibility to support people in the workplace, because they do spend a large part of their life in the workplace or doing a particular role. So I feel like organizations do have a responsibility somewhat to just understand their people and support them the best way they can in terms of these human needs.
We've got small to medium businesses that are competing with enterprise for talent. If they haven't yet clarified or articulated well their EVP, where do small businesses start?
I think that the critical thing for me is, can leaders articulate what is the value proposition? Can the person
Mm.
interviewing and then managing employees, can they articulate it and also live to it? Even if they don't have a well articulated EVP and they're not marketing it, um, at the very least, at the job application stage, at the interview stage, whoever is doing that, having that conversation with candidates, should be very clear as to what it is they offer, beyond the salary, the location, the skills and responsibilities. What else is there that makes them a good place for this person to work at?
And it's a lot of actually deep work that leaders need to do, or the founder of the business, or the people and culture team on themselves as well. Because I think that there's this
Yeah.
subtle energy of like you said, like it's going to be a great place to work in terms of even psychological safety,
Yeah.
etc. It's also what are the leaders bringing in from a cultural and standpoint, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, uh, it's I think it's important to address how much of an impact a leader has on its people. So equipping them, like making sure that they understand their impact on people, but also how is their own well-being, because often we say the leader's responsibility to do this, to do that, but who's looking after them, and how do they look after themselves? So I think it's important for them to be aware of their own human needs, and then perhaps be able to relate to others accordingly.
Hmm. And so going back to the future of work, you mentioned the higher order values and really embedding that into the workplace. What other shifts are you seeing in the next, say, 8 years in businesses?
I think one of the things that we've been talking to companies a lot about is, um, where does a job start and end? So a lot about this, bringing work and life as one. I think previously we called it work-life balance. I heard recently someone call it work-life alignment. Whatever you want to call it, I think there is a um, something that we just need to call life, and it includes work. And I think what we're seeing is companies are really have an appetite to embrace the fact that individuals are looking for something that is more holistic and more um, intertwined, I suppose, in terms of work and their life. Definitely, that's a definite shift, I think. The other one's around inclusivity. So I think there's a lot of appetite, both from an employer perspective, but also from employees, to kind of work for organizations that are genuinely inclusive and genuinely make decisions based on what they know about me, rather than with my input, rather than make decisions and then just tell me the decisions. So I think organizations that can, in their way of working, be genuinely inclusive, I think those organizations that can be inclusive and involve people in the decisions that affect them will be the most successful in the future.
Hmm. I recently did an interview for the CEO magazine and I called it work life blend.
Yes.
Going to your point about this shift that we've had post-COVID off the hybrid nature of working. So it's like almost, how do you embrace that? The fact that if people are working from home, there is going to be an element of that personal life coming into work. And then if they're going to try and make up that time, then there's going to be that the other way around.
Yeah.
So it's really embodying that now nature of work into the future. And obviously the technological shifts as well, more and more. We're going to start to see those.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think how do we not stress people out by the fact that technology is advancing rapidly, and people perhaps through lack of understanding don't know how that will affect them in the future? And how do we build a sense of community, I think, rather than a employer-employee relationship? So how do we build a sense of community so that we're working together in the future, rather than a kind of old master servant, which I think in some organizations it still feels a bit like that, rather than a community that's everyone working towards doing something that matters for the growth of their business, matters for the performance of their business, and matters for the well-being and thriving life of those that work there. How do we create that kind of community?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is, we've never been in a position where in businesses we're starting to see the most diverse sort of intergenerational interactions and sort of cross-functional dependency, but with lots of different sort of that cross-spectrum of age groups.
Yes.
Right. And it's like, yeah, how do you break down the authority levels and have more of a collaboration, whether it's the age factor or whether it's the title factor? But it's the appreciation of that diversity in the workplace. It's interesting because I think from all my conversations with business leaders, the biggest challenge is coming from communication, and the intention is not to offend anyone, but where we're seeing the biggest challenges is just the way of communication.
Yeah,
it's changing rapidly, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's funny, we just did a communications diagnostic across an organization, and literally the purpose was to understand how do we best communicate with you and what adds the most value to your everyday in the way that we communicate. And I don't think many organizations are asking those questions. And so therefore, there's a lot of activity, but a lot of, I guess, communication that's not landing or is not helping either the organization or the employees in that regard. Absolutely.
Yeah, I have this is just a personal experience, but example of this. When I think about, I'm in my 40s, my oldest child is 10, and when he communicates to me, it's really, really casual. And sometimes I say to him, can you be slightly more polite? But, the other day, he actually said to me, I am being polite. And I realized like it was such a reality check on, hang on, that's generational communication.
Yeah.
He is being respectful based on his understanding of, or that generation's understanding of how communication occurs, because they're living and breathing these social media platforms where that's completely broken down barriers of let's say the Queen's English. We're not in that era anymore.
Yes.
So it's very similar. Like when I think about kind of what's happening in the workplace, it's similar, because we're seeing this kind of collision of different generations, and so how they speak and communicate. And again, going back to like no ill intention of anyone, no one's wanting to come to work trying to be rude.
Exactly, that's right. It's a shift it's mindset shift. Like I think it's a mindset shift of saying, can I really genuinely put myself in the shoes of that person? And if not, I should ask questions and find out how I can, because then I can communicate more effectively.
Yes.
But if I don't do that, I'm just going what I want to say and how I want to say it.
Yes.
And I think that comes, because it's funny, I have a 15-year-old, and it's different. She's very formal. And I always think, gosh, she's so formal. And I think it's because that's how she writes to other adults, because her only level of adults are teachers and tutors and parents. So she thinks that's the way to communicate. So it's understanding them, I guess, and where they're coming from.
Yes, yes. So, Evelyn, tell us, is there any sort of last, I guess, insights that you want to share around how businesses can prepare themselves better for the changes that we're yet to see?
I think my main kind of insights that I think, or takeaway for people, is communication, how we communicate both at a group level with organizations and at an organizational level, but also one-on-one communication is critically important. And the second thing, which I think is what we were talking about earlier, is this: how do we change the relationship people have with work so that it's more of a even keel, even though we have employers paying employees? How do we change the mindset that we want people to feel part of the organization, because only then will they perform better and more effectively? So how do we change that mindset, that we're really trying to embrace people as people? That's, I think, the biggest shift that's needed in mindset across leadership and organizations. Because employees will tell you, if they feel like they're got the autonomy, a part of something, they feel like they're treated as a human being rather than a number, they will outperform anybody else in their team, or they'll try to do their best every single time. So that would be my biggest takeaway.
I think it's a really beautiful note to end this discussion on, because it's also quite personal, right? Like the way that you've positioned that question, it's so personal for the leader in the organization to take that away and think about what that means for them and how they'll position, again, going back to that EVP, and then, yeah, make those adjustments so employees do feel part of the whole growth, and it's almost like you're growing together as opposed to one dimensional.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Evelyn. And I know our listeners know where to find you. It's Corporate Crayon. Is there a website that they can link up with you on?
Absolutely. If you want to know anything about well-being at work, internal communications or leadership development, yes, please reach out. Always happy to help. corporatecrayon.com.
Thank you. Thanks for your time, Evelyn.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.